All right, so let's jump in and start doing our first asset here. We have created this skeleton, but we need to make sure that the department here is set to modeling. We're also not going to need this camera here, so I'm going to kill that. All right, so the idea here is that you go to this context node, and here we want to select the context that we're going to work on, and it is going to be applied between these two green ones. And so when we select the context here, we'll notice that there is no assets to work on. And we are going to work on the butterfly asset. So we can create one here and call it butterfly. And it will ask you if you want to add a thumbnail for it. And you can select one from your disk, or you can add it to the folder later. I'm just going to skip it. And we get something like that. What you should see in your demo project is that in assets, a folder has been created for the butterfly with this thumbnail. And so if you wanted to drag something in there, an image, it will pop right up. We should be able to sort of drag this into the thumbnail folder. If we go back here and we sort of reload this thumbnail, we should have the butterfly there. Now, so sometimes in Houdini you would build something in here, and then you would sort of create a sub crate perhaps, and you would work in that. If you do that, you have to make sure that this import prefix path, also called the print paths, they have to be the name of what you want to work on. We don't want exports coming out being named sub create, right? So it's always important to set these with the name that's going to be used, for instance. This goes as well if you import something from SOPs that you have made. In this case, and a lot of other cases, you would probably reference something in that has been made in another software, maybe model from Maya. And so we are going to create a reference node here. And same thing, this is something you always have to remember, is that you have to change these print paths to what it is you're targeting. So butterfly, the file. And so because we have set the project, whenever you go to this job, you should automatically see the folder structure. So we'll go into transfer, and in the in folder, we'll find the butterfly here. And so this is quite confusing, but at first you maybe don't see anything at all. And this is because the filter is, by default, it's set to just USD files. So we can pull that out and just do an asterisk, and then we see alembics. So, and we're going to add that one. So if I press space G here, we should see our little butterfly. Now, something that is very important to remember when we are dealing with assets is that we want to make sure that this is following a good practice. So if we look at something like the test geometries, like the rubber toy, you will see that it's part of a group, and then there is a geo folder with the shape in it and a material. And so we want to mimic this structure as we export as well. And so if we look at what we have now with the butterfly, it is just one level here. So what we want to do is actually add into this path like so. So now we have the butterfly and the geo group. And this way, when we add a material later, we'll be able to put it in the butterfly folder. Now you can do that anyways, but it's good practice to do. And so we are going to go to our output here, and we're going to set that to a USD export. And we can leave the rest default. This will output to the modeling context and the main output. And you don't need to name these. Because this is a stationary asset, we're just going to press current frame. There's no need to export the full range. And when we go down to our submitter here, there is a default one, which just will output anything that is connected, and we only have one thing. If you want to, you can name this so you remember what it is. My export. And if you don't want to output everything, you can specifically select things here, the butterfly, for instance, and just the output. That's totally up to you how you want to do it. Once you're happy with that, you click preview, and you should be able to see this asset, and that it's going to come out as a USD, that it's one frame only, and you will see the path here where it's going to come out. And so we can press that and submit it. And it will be so fast that you won't see any progress. But you can click this publish history up here, and once you do, you should see that this butterfly has been exported. And all right, so now we're gonna move on to lookdev. Normally, some other person would maybe pick up this and have their own file and do lookdev in. And so we are going to do that exact same thing, but we are going to stay in the same file and just scoot over a bit to keep things simple. So now we're going to do the lookdev aspect here. So again, we are going to go for the Greylight base node, and it should already be set. Of course, if you're in a new file, you would need to set the project again, and we need to select our department. And so we're going to go with lookdev, and we're just going to need one template column here. And for lookdev, we actually do want a camera, so we can add a camera here. And so we click the template button, and we should get this. So now in our context node here again, we'll select what we want to work on, and we want to work on the butterfly. And we should get the same nice thumbnail we had before. So if we put our view flag here, we should see that it is already loaded in here. And so for the lookdev, let's add a dome light here just to see what we're doing. See what we're doing. And we are going to create a material library here. And just gonna delete this little dot here. And we'll dive inside the material library and we'll create a karma material. And we'll call this one body. And we'll jump in. And so you will see this standard surface here, and we'll do a very simple shader. So we need the image, MTLX image. And we're just gonna dive into this, and you should be in your transfer folder here. If you're not, you can go to the job and transfer in and butterfly, right? And butterfly textures, and we'll have body color here. So we'll add that one, and we'll connect this one to the base color. And I'll drag this one over, and for this one, we're going to choose the specular, body specular. And we'll drag that into specular. And lastly, we'll drag it over, and we'll do one for the normal here. And so I need to change this as well. Body normal map, like so. And for normal maps, you actually need another node as well. So you need to do this one. And this is so that you can set the scale of this normal. And so we're gonna set it pretty low, 0.05 or something like that. And we are going to create another material. We're just gonna copy this one, and this one is gonna be for the wings. We're just going to replace the paths here. So instead of body color, we're going to go with wing color. And instead of the body specular, we're going to go with the wing specular. And same thing for the normal. And now you probably want to do a bunch of other settings with this. And you're free to experiment as much as you want with this. For instance, you might want to connect this one to the subsurface color, and add a little bit of subsurface to it, and play around with the scale and stuff like that. Maybe we'll do a color correct, and sort of boost the saturation maybe a little bit for the subsurface or something like that, and play around with sort of specular values and coat and stuff like that. But we are mostly going to leave it by default for simplicity's sake. Right, so now we have our materials. So by default, this will sort of dump all the materials in here in the stage, but that's not what we want, right? We want it to live underneath the butterfly. And so the way to do that is up here, same as prim paths. What we want to do is we want to add butterfly in front of it. So we can sort of drag that up there, and we'll type materials or matte or shaders or whatever you want to call it, and then an extra slash here. And now we should have the same sort of structure as assets have. with a geofolder and materials. And so you can technically assign shaders here to things. In fact, there is a function here to autofill materials. I highly discourage from using that because if you do, what you will see is that the materials has now popped out again. And now you have to set all these paths. And it's just not a great solution for it. So I would keep these separate and just have this asterisk here. So instead, we're going to use something called assign material. And so we'll place this after and make sure we look at it. If you don't want to see a massive camera here, you can turn that off. So what you can do now is that you can choose the primitives that you want to add stuff to. So maybe we'll go into the geometry here and select legs, for instance. And then you select the material. And we're going to use body. And so if we do that, we can see that it got the materials. You can, however, also, if you jump into the materials, you can drag and drop. So you can take this and just sort of drag it here, and it will ask you if you want it on which level you want it, like so. And we'll do the same with the wings. And there we go. All right. And now you can sort of, preview render this and shade it however you want. So maybe you want to do a turntable for it as well. And so if we set up this camera here, I'm just gonna sort of tie this camera to the viewport and press space G so I can sort of line this guy up. Maybe something like that. And you always have to remember to untie these. Now, so what we can do is we can, so we just set up a camera here. What we can do is we can put down an Xform node, an Xform edit. And by default, it will use the one that is above it, which in our case is the camera. And it is set to edit. And we're just going to do this one, set or create. And now, so instead of append, you can set this to apply transform in world space. And so this way the camera will rotate around Origo. And so we can animate this value, or we can do an expression. So you're just going to do $F, maybe times 5. And so now we should have a turntable here. So that's a fun little trick. So, maybe you have this render here. And so to output this turntable, you would want to have this render like we do. And maybe you want to call it turntable when you render it. And everything is good, right? The problem is that we also want to export this looked up. And so if we put down a Greylight output now and set this to a USD export, what will happen now is that the USD export will, contain this light and a camera and that stuff, which is not what we want, right? And so this is where these outputs sort of has like a superpower, because these outputs, what is happening is when things are being rendered, these are basically being disabled and enabled. And so whatever is inside them will only be active when they themselves are being outputted. And so what we can do is we can take these things that we did for the turntable, the dome light and camera and that stuff, and we can just cut it out and put it in here in the render output. So there's a little workspace in here. When you have several of these, what you need to do is, because the system doesn't know which one to pick, right? And so you have this preview switcher. And so here we can switch between the two. And so we can see that if I pick USD main, now nothing will move. If I pick the turntable, now we have that camera and the turntable exists. And so the only thing that will come out now is the actual materials. Now, another thing that's very interesting with these outputs is that I think we're probably used to that these outputs are supposed to come last. And in some scenarios that is the case, because you want to be able to sort of use hide and mats and phantom and stuff like that. But because everything is being loaded up here in the base node, you can actually you can put these up top. So for instance, if you're working on the materials here, you know, you want this turntable to exist, and you want the light to be above it, so you can see it, right? Yeah, so don't be afraid to put things on top. Just be careful that it's not going to be able to hide or matte anything that, you know, has been added below it. And so for the look tab, we're just going to set it to current frame. All right, so if we would output this now, if we preview the output, we can see that the turntable is going to come out and be 100 frames, and we're going to export the USD here. So we're not going to render the turntable, so I'm just going to uncheck that. So I'm going to output the USD here. So once that's done, we can go into our publish history, and we can see that the look tab has indeed come out. And you have this little button here, copy path, and it will offer you to sort of copy the node, or copy the path into a node. So we can do a sublayer node here, and if you click and then you just paste, you will have that path. So now we can see what's in this, and as you can see, there is nothing in here, and this is because, you know, the materials are here, but the geometry is not. And this is this little red burger that we see. That means it's an overlay, that it's looking for a butterfly, geo, body, blah blah blah, to add things to, and so you would need to combine both files. And so if we would if I would take this modeling thing as well as a sublayer node, we would see that, and then if I connect the other one, then we get it. So sometimes that is what you want, but this means that anyone bringing in this asset has to bring in these two files. Sometimes that is what you want, so you can completely have them separate. If you do not want them separate, there are a few ways to do that too. There are all sorts of options you can use for doing that. You can flatten the layers here. You can disallow layer breaks and stuff like that. But probably the easiest way is to just go to the base node here and click this one, include loaded in exports. And what that will do, if we export again here, and we'll just deselect the turntable. So if I go to the publish history, we can see that looktab version 2 has come out here. So I'll copy that as a sublayer. And now we can see there that it is in there. And it's still layered. It's just that it includes the modeling reference within the export. And typically, I think this is the better way to do it. There are other ways to override the material if you want to later on. All right, so next we are going to continue looktab, but we're going to do it for a new asset, which is the boat. We are going to continue our work with the assets, and this time with the boat asset. And so, like always, we are going to put down our base node, and this time we are just going to do looktab from the start, and we're just going to need one here, and we're just going to skip the cameras on this one. So we create a template, and in our node here, we're going to create a new asset. And this one is going to be called boat. And again, it's asking us for a thumbnail, so we'll select one. So I'll just select this one, and it should be added. And this will be auto-selected, so we just press select, and now we have a nice little thumbnail there. So again, to bring in this boat that we have, we are going to shake things up a little bit to show you how that works as well. So in this case, we'll put out a reference node. And if you're unsure why you would use a reference node or why you would use a sublayer node, the easiest way to say it is that the sublayer node brings us in as it was exported. And so everything that our system is exporting is sort of how you want to bring things in. So then you would use a sublayer. If you are bringing something else and you want to have the power to sort of change the path that it's going to come in as well as picking within the hierarchy what you want to bring in, then reference is where you go. But it's important to know the difference between these two nodes. All right, so first thing, print path, as always, we need to set it, and we are going to call it boat. And when we go into the file pattern here, and we go to our job and transfer in, we'll find this is a boat zip. And this is might be unusual for some people to see USD sed or USD zip. What that is that it's a very, very handy format that can be used to bake everything into a single file. So all textures, materials, cameras, the model, everything. And so it's very, very nice to have when you send things to the client, because you don't need to send a hierarchy of files. And in the last video, I'll show you how to export these yourselves. These are also very common to use on the web in standalone viewers and stuff like that. So we'll bring that one in, and we should see the boat here, and we can see this structure already is set up. So it has a U folder and a material folder. All right, so with this one, we already have a look dev and a model and everything. So what we're going to do with this one is we're going to set up material variants and geometry variants. So to do this, we need to add variants. And there are two ways to do it, or two nodes. We have add variants to existing primitive, and you have add variants to new primitive. They're basically the same nodes with different settings. I am going to use the add variants to new primitive to show you how it works, because it can definitely be a little bit confusing. You would assume that you would plug this in and you would do some variant to this boat, you know, as a transform, for example, like so, and this is a bigger boat. But when we press this add variant, we can actually see here in the inputs what type of variants we have, and we only have one. And this is because the first input is the first variant. And so what we need to do is actually add this. We need to add it to this. And so now we can see that we actually have two of these guys. Now, if we look at this, we'll also see that this variant, you know, it's ending up here, you know, not on the boat itself. And so what you need to do is in the prim path, we need to select our boat. So if we do that, we'll see another problem. So now it does end up in the boat, but we also get a duplicate boat in here, which is not what we want. And this is because the variant source primitive, you know, the one that's coming from the second input here is looking for something, and by default, you know, it's just a slash, which is the top one here. So it's basically duplicating everything. So in this one, we need to select the boat as well. And so what we have now, we have everything working. If we right click this, we should see that it has this model thing on it. And this list that we see here, you can sort of drag these and change the order of it. And whatever order you set here is going to be the default, basically. And you can see that these names are not very pleasant. So once we are going to add, once people are going to try and select, you know, variants, you know, they don't really want to, you don't want to have them be called reference 21 and transform 7. You want it to be called something more logical. So one way is to just do, you know, sort of A and B, if you want. It's a simple way. And now if you look, you will have, you know, A and B versions of it. So we're not going to do the transform here. That feels a little bit silly. So instead, I'm going to add a edit node. And with this edit node, we can go here and we see our boats. And what we're going to do is we're just going to move the oars around a little bit. So I'll try to do something really fast here. If I look at that, it will help. Maybe something like that. And for the other oar, just going to lean it that way. All right, so if we look at our add variant node now, we do have the A and B. Next up, we're going to do another variant, and this time we're going to do it for the material. So again, we're going to do the add variant, and we're just going to do the normal one. So we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to connect this here, and now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to select boat, and I'm just going to copy this over into this path here. And for the variant set here, we're going to call it material. Right, so to adjust this material, what we need to do is create an edit material network. And the amazing thing about these USD files is that you can sort of rebuild shaders and stuff and adjust them. And so that is what we're going to do. So I'm going to look at this edit material, and we are going to control click this button here, and we're going to go and find the material we want to change. So let's say we want to make the boat a little bit darker, perhaps. We'll select that, you click load, and once this pops up, you're ready to jump inside. And so here you have the entire boat network rebuilt. And what you can do now is that you can override things. So every node will have these checkboxes. And so we're just going to make it a little bit darker. And so we are just going to sort of take this down a little bit. All right, and then the same as the other one, we are going to name this. And so the edit material here, maybe we'll call this one normal, and the edit material one we're just going to call darker. All right, so we have set both in both of these, and we've set this variant set to be the material. All right, and so now we are pretty much done with this boat. And because we brought in the boat here and made all the changes in here, we don't really need to do anything else. So we're going to change this to use the export. And we don't need to do any settings, but we can do current frame and the output. Right, and if we go to publish history, we should see that the boat looked up has come out. All right, so that sort of concludes the looked up part. There are many ways you can sort of structure how you want to set these up. Maybe you want to do the model and looked up in the same one and have two different outputs for them. You can do that. In that case, maybe you set it up as a looked up, and then on you separate the output, and for the model you would override the department and sort of select model on that one. And you can experiment with that as well. And that's also something we're going to get into in the last video, some tips and tricks and stuff.